VMware ESX is an enterprise-level computer virtualization product offered by VMware Incorporated. ESX is a component of VMware's larger offering, VMware Infrastructure, which adds management and reliability services to the core server product. VMware is replacing the original ESX with ESXi. VMware ESX and VMware ESXi are Type 1 hypervisors that are VMware's enterprise software hypervisors for guest virtual servers that run directly on host server hardware without requiring an additional underlying operating system. The basic server requires some form of persistent storage that store the hypervisor and support files. A smaller footprint variant, ESXi, does away with the first requirement by permitting placement of a hypervisor on a dedicated compact storage device. Both variants support the services offered by VMware Infrastructure. Naming, ESX is apparently derived from Elastic SkyX, but with rare exceptions this doesn't appear in official VMware material. Technical description: VMware Incorporated refers to the hypervisor used by VMware ESX as VMknl. Architecture: VMware states that the ESX product runs on bare metal. In contrast to other VMware products, it does not run atop a third-party operating system, but instead includes its own kernel. A Linux kernel was started first, and is used to load a variety of specialized virtualization components, including VMware's VMknl component. This previously booted Linux kernel then becomes the first running virtual machine and is called the service console. Thus, at normal runtime, the VMknl is running on the bare computer and the Linux-based service console runs as the first virtual machine. As of version 4.1, VMware has dropped development of ESX and now focuses exclusively on ESXi, which is devoid of a Linux kernel. The VMknl itself, which VMware says is a microkernel, has three interfaces to the outside world: hardware, guest systems, service console, interface to hardware. The VMknl handles CPU and memory directly, using scan before execution to handle special or privileged CPU instructions and the SRAT to track allocated memory. Access to other hardware takes place using modules. At least some of the modules derive from modules used in the Linux kernel. To access these modules, an additional module called VMKlinux implements the Linux module interface. According to the README file, this module contains the Linux emulation layer used by the VMknl. The VMknl uses the device drivers, NetE100, NetE1000, NetE1000E, NetBNX2, NetTG3, NetForsteth, NetPCNET32, Block CCISS, STCADP94XX, STCAG7XXX, STCAG79XX, STCIPS, STCLPFCDDV732, STCMegaRAID2, STCMPTSCSI2XX, STCQLA2200V7.07, STCMegaRAID-SAS, STCQLA4010, STCQLA4022, STCMKISTC, STCARCRAID-EAS30, STCLPFCDDV7XX, STCQLA2200. V7XX. These drivers mostly equate to those described in VMware's hardware compatibility list. All these modules fall under the GPL. Programmers have adapted them to run with the VMknl. VMware Incorporated has changed the module loading and some other minor things. Service console. In ESX, the service console is a vestigial general-purpose operating system most significantly used as bootstrap for the VMware kernel, VMknl, and secondarily used as a management interface. Both of these console operating system functions are being deprecated from version 5.0, as VMware migrates exclusively to the embedded ESXi model, current version being ESXi. The service console, for all intents and purposes, is the operating system used to interact with VMware ESX and the virtual machines that run on the server. Linux dependencies. ESX uses a Linux kernel to load additional code, often referred to by VMware, incorporated as the VMkernel. The dependencies between the VMkernel and the Linux part of the ESX server have changed drastically over different major versions of the software. The VMware FAQ states, ESX server also incorporates a service console based on a Linux 2.4 kernel that is used to boot the ESX server virtualization layer. The Linux kernel runs before any other software on an ESX host. On ESX versions 1 and 2, no VMkernel processes run on the system during the boot process. After the Linux kernel has loaded, the S90 VMware script loads the VMkernel. VMware Incorporated states that VMkernel does not derive from Linux, but acknowledges that it has adapted certain device drivers from Linux device drivers. The Linux kernel continues running, under the control of the VMkernel, providing functions including the proc file system used by the ESX and an environment to run support applications. ESX version 3 loads the VMkernel from the Linux initrd, thus much earlier in the boot sequence than in previous ESX versions. In traditional systems, a given operating system runs a single kernel. The VMware FAQ mentions that ESX has both a Linux 2.4 kernel and VMkernel, hence confusion over whether ESX has a Linux base. An ESX system starts a Linux kernel first, but it loads VMkernel, which according to VMware wraps around the Linux kernel, and which does not derive from Linux. The ESX user space environment, known as the Service Console, derives from a modified version of Red Hat Linux. In general, this Service Console provides management interfaces. As a further detail which differentiates the ESX from other VMware virtualization products, ESX supports the VMware proprietary cluster file system VMFS. VMFS enables multiple hosts to access the same SAN LUN simultaneously, while file-level locking provides simple protection to file system integrity. Purple diagnostic screen. In the event of a hardware error, the VMkernel can catch a machine check exception. This results in an error message displayed on a purple diagnostic screen. This is colloquially known as a purple diagnostic screen, or purple screen of death. Upon displaying a purple diagnostic screen, the VMkernel writes debug information to the core dump partition. This information, together with the error codes displayed on the purple diagnostic screen, can be used by VMware support to determine the cause of the problem. vMotion, live migration. Live migration in ESX allows a virtual machine to move between two different hosts. Live storage migration enables live migration of virtual disks on the fly. During vMotion live migration of a running virtual machine, the content of the memory of the VM is sent from the running VM to the new VM. The content of memory is by its nature changing all the time. ESX uses a system where the content is sent to the other VM and then it will check what data is changed and send that, each time smaller blocks. At the last moment it will very briefly freeze the existing VM, transfer the last changes in the RAM content and then start the new VM. The intended effect of this process is to minimize the time during which the VM is suspended. In a best case this will be the time of the final transfer plus the time required to start the new VM. Versions. VMware ESX is available in two main types, ESX and ESXi, although since version 5 only ESXi is continued. VMware ESX, version release history. VMware ESX Server 1.0 build 1062 first release was in 2001, VMware ESX Server 1.1, VMware ESX 1.5, VMware ESX Server 1.5, VMware ESX 2.0, VMware ESX Server 2.1 build 22983, VMware ESX Server 2.0.2 build 23922, VMware ESX 2.5, VMware ESX Server 2.5.0 build 11343, VMware ESX Server 2.5.1 build 13057, VMware ESX Server 2.5.1 build 14182, VMware ESX Server 2.5.2 build 16390, VMware ESX Server 2.5.3 build 22981, VMware ESX Server 2.5.4 build 32233, VMware ESX Server 2.5.5 build 57619, VMware Infrastructure 3.0, VMware ESX Server 3.0 build 27701, VMware ESX Server 3.0.1 build 32039, VMware ESX Server 3.0.2 build 52542, VMware ESX Server 3.0.3 build 104629, VMware ESX Server 3.0.3 update 1 build 231127, VMware ESX Server 3.5, VMware ESX Server 3.5 build 64607, VMware ESX Server 3.5 update 1 build 82663, VMware ESX Server 3.5 update 2 build 110268, VMware ESX Server 3.5 update 3 build 123630, VMware ESX Server 3.5 update 4 build 153875. VMware ESX Server 3.5 update 5 build 207,095. This was the last version to support 32-bit systems. VMware Vsphere 4.0, VMware ESX 4.0 build 164,009, VMware ESX 4.0 update 1 build 208,167, VMware ESX 4.0 update 2 build 261,974, VMware ESX 4.0 update 3 build 398,348, VMware ESX 4.0 update 4 build 504,850. VMware ESX 4.1 build 260,247, VMware ESX 4.1 update 1 build 348,481, VMware ESX 4.1 update 2 build 502,767, VMware ESX 4.1 update 3 build 800,380, ESX and ESXi before version 5.0 do not support Windows 8/Windows 2012. These Microsoft operating systems can only run on ESXi 5X or later. July 18, 2010 Vsphere 4.1 and its subsequent update and patch releases are the last releases to include both ESX and ESXi hypervisor architectures. Future major releases of VMware Vsphere will include only the VMware ESXi architecture. For this reason, VMware recommends that deployments of Vsphere 4X utilize the ESXi hypervisor architecture. VMware ESXi VMware ESXi is a smaller footprint version of ESX that does not include the ESX Service Console. It is available without the need to purchase a vCenter license as a free download from VMware with some features disabled. VMware ESXi was originally a compact version of VMware ESX that allowed for a smaller 32 MB disk footprint on the host. With a simple configuration console for mostly network configuration and remote-based VMware Infrastructure client interface, this allows for more resources to be dedicated to the guest environments. There are two variations of ESXi, VMware ESXi Installable and VMware ESXi Embedded Edition. The same installation media will install to either one or the other of these installation modes depending on the size of the target media. It has the ability to upgrade to VMware Infrastructure 3 or VMware Vsphere 4.0 ESXi. Originally named VMware ESX Server ESXi Edition, Through several revisions the product finally became VMware ESXi 3. New additions then followed, ESXi 3.5, ESXi 4 and now ESXi 5. To virtualize Windows 8 or Windows Server 2012 as guest operating systems, the ESXi version must be 5.0 Update 1 or later. Version release history, VMware ESX 3.0.0 GA, VMware ESX 3.0.1 GA, VMware ESX 3.0.2 GA, VMware ESX 3.0.3 GA, VMware ESXi 3.5 GA, VMware ESXi 3.5 Update 1, VMware ESXi 3.5 Update 2, VMware ESXi 3.5 Update 3, VMware ESXi 3.5 Update 4, VMware ESXi 3.5 Update 5, VMware ESXi 4.0 GA, VMware ESXi 4.0 Update 1, VMware ESXi 4.0 Update 2, VMware ESXi 4.0 Update 3, VMware ESXi 4.0 Update 4, VMware ESXi 4.1 GA, VMware ESXi 4.1 Update 1, VMware ESXi 4.1 Update 2, VMware ESXi 4.1 Update 3, VMware ESXi 5.0 GA, VMware ESXi 5.0 Update 1, VMware ESXi 5.0 Update 2, VMware ESXi 5.0 Update 3, VMware ESXi 5.1 GA, VMware ESXi 5.1 Update 1, VMware ESXi 5.1 Update 2, VMware ESXi 5.5 GA, VMware ESXi 5.5 Update 1, related or additional products. The following products operate in conjunction with ESX. vCenter Server enables monitoring and management of multiple ESX, ESXi and GSX servers. In addition, users must install it to run infrastructure services such as vMotion, vMotion also known as Storage vMotion, Enhanced vMotion also known as eVMotion, DRS, HA, Fault Tolerance. Converter enables users to create VMware ESX server or workstation-compatible virtual machines from either physical machines or from virtual machines made by other virtualization products. Converter replaces the VMware P2V Assistant, and Importer products. A Euro P2V Assistant allowed users to convert physical machines into virtual machines. And Importer allowed the import of virtual machines from other products into VMware Workstation. Vsphere Client enables monitoring and management of a single instance of ESX or ESXi server. After ESX 4.1, Vsphere Client was no longer available from the ESXi server, but must be downloaded from the VMware website. Vsphere Client 4.1.0. Cisco Nexus 1000B. Network connectivity between ESX hosts and the VMs running on it relies on virtual NICs and virtual switches. The latter exists in two versions, the standard vSwitch allowing several VMs on a single ESX host to share a physical NIC, and the distributed vSwitch where the vSwitches on different ESX hosts together form one logical switch. Cisco offers in their Cisco Nexus product line the Nexus 1000B, an advanced version of the standard distributed vSwitch. A Nexus 1000B consists of two parts, a supervisor module and on each ESX host a virtual Ethernet module. The VSM runs as a virtual appliance within the ESX cluster or on dedicated hardware, and the VM runs as module on each host and replaces a standard DVS from VMware. Configuration of the switch is done on the VSM using the standard NXO CLI. It offers capabilities to create standard port profiles which can then be assigned to virtual machines using vCenter. There are several differences between the standard DVS and the N1000B, One is that the Cisco switch generally has full support for network technologies such as LACP link aggregation, or that the VMware switch supports new features such as routing based on physical NIC load. However, the main difference lies in the architecture. Nexus 1000V is working in the same way as a physical Ethernet switch does, while DVS is relying on information from ESX. This has consequences, for example in scalability, where the limit for a N1000V is 2048 virtual ports against 60,000 for a DVS. The Nexus 1000V is developed in cooperation between Cisco and VMware and uses the API of the DVS, third-party management tools, because VMware ESX is a leader in the server virtualization market. Software and hardware vendors offer a range of tools to integrate their products or services with ESX. Examples are the products from VM with backup and management applications, and Attribution to monitor and manage ESX using HP OpenView, Quest software with a range of management and backup applications, and most major backup solution providers have plugins or modules for ESX. Using Microsoft Operations Manager 2007/2012 with a Bridgeways ESX Management Pack gives you a real-time ESX data center health view. Also, hardware vendors such as HP and Dell include tools to support the use of ESXi on their hardware platforms. An example is the ESX module for Dell's Open Management platform. VMware have added a web client since V5, but it will work on vCenter only and contains not all features. VMware is a Linux application which is trying to fill that gap. These are just a few examples. There are numerous third-party products to manage, monitor or backup ESX infrastructures and the VMs running on them. Known limitations of VMware ESXi, as of June 2013, include the following. Infrastructure limitations. Some maximums in ESXi Server 5.1 may influence the design of data centers. Guest system maximum RAM, 1 TB, host system maximum RAM, 2 TB, number of hosts in a high availability cluster, 32, number of hosts in a distributed resource scheduler cluster, 32, maximum number of processors per virtual machine. 64, maximum number of processors per host, 160, maximum number of virtual CPUs per physical CPU core, 25, maximum number of virtual machines per host, 512, maximum number of virtual disks per virtual machine, 60, VMFS5 maximum volume size, 64 terabytes, but maximum file size is 2 terabytes minus 512 bytes, performance limitations. In terms of performance, virtualization imposes a cost in the additional work the CPU has to perform to virtualize the underlying hardware. Instructions that perform this extra work, and other activities that require virtualization, tend to lie in operating system calls. In an unmodified operating system, OS calls introduce the greatest portion of virtualization overhead. Paravirtualization or other virtualization techniques may help with these issues. VMware developed the virtual machine interface for this purpose, and selected operating systems currently support this. A comparison between full virtualization and paravirtualization for the ESX server shows that in some cases paravirtualization is much faster. Network limitations. When using the advanced and extended network capabilities by using the Cisco Nexus 1000V distributed virtual switch, the following network-related limitations apply. 64 ESXi hosts per VSM, 2048 virtual Ethernet interfaces per VMware EVDS, and a maximum of 216 virtual interfaces per ESXi host. 2048 active VLANs, 2048 port profiles, 32 physical NICs per ESXi host, 256 port channels per VMware EVDS, and a maximum of 8 port channels per ESXi host. See also, comparison of platform virtual machines, KVM Linux kernel-based virtual machine an open-source hypervisor platform, Hyper-V a competitor of VMware ESX from Microsoft, Xen an open-source hypervisor platform, virtual appliance, virtual machine, Virtual Disk Image, VMware VMFS, x86 Virtualization, References. External links, VMware ESX Product Page, ESXi Release and Build Number History.